We're going to start without Mrs. Taylor. She'll be here shortly. Okay, the time is 5:30. I would like to start our monthly board meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Board President Griffin,
Present.
Board Member Alexander. Present. Board Vice President Hannah,
Present.
Board Member Dawson,
Present.
Board Member Morris,
Present.
Board Member Taylor,
Absent.
Board Member Williams Wolford. Present.
Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if we could have a moment of silence, and everyone, please turn your phones on silent. Next, we'll have the public hearing on the tax levy for 2022. Mr. Baranik.
Good evening, Board of Education, administrators, staff members, and community members. We are here for our public hearing on our tax levy 2022. Any request over 5% would require a public hearing. And we are going to be requesting 7%, which would require a public hearing. In order to meet the requirements of the truth in taxation, the district would have to have a public notice in the paper. That notice went out on December 9th, and that notice had to be in the paper no more than 7 days and no less than 7 days, no more than 14. So it met the time frame on that. If we go over what the actual levy is, remember our levy is a request to Cook County to basically fund our operations for the next school year. What we request in 2022 will be collected in 2023 to use for our operating expenses in our next school year. Remember, our levy is our largest source of revenue. It is 70% of our revenue for the district. Very, very important. This is what we use to fund everything to ensure that we have a quality education for our students. The levy amounts are determined by looking at each fund. Each fund is looked at on a case-by-case basis to see what our annual expenditures are, and our requests are based off of what our annual expenditures are. There's a few things that go into estimating what our tax levy is. We look at the prior year's extension that Cook County releases to us. Each year, they release that at different times. And the big thing on that is the district is entitled to levy 5% of the previous year's extension, or has to hold the truth in taxation. The reason why I am requesting to levy the 7%, if you remember, the Roosevelt Road TIF is coming off the books. There's roughly $5 million of new EAV, which the district is entitled to capture those funds. By going the additional 2%, that is going to allow the district to have some cushion to capture those funds. Also, there are some factors that we have to look at. The inflation factor for this particular tax levy is 7%. I just want the community to know that our bills are going up for the district. Our purchase service contracts are going up. Our supplies are going up. Our salaries are going up. Our benefits are going up. This is just to keep up with inflation on it as our operating expenditures continue to increase year after year and year after year. And this is just our request to the county. I think the biggest thing here that, that I have to instill to anybody when you're presenting a tax levy is always ask for more. The county can reduce you down. If you under levy, that's the biggest issue that districts face because they leave money on the table. So in this case, by levying the 7%, I don't believe that we have any money that will be left on the table with our request to Cook County. Some of the factors that also go into this calculation, if you remember last year, we abated the property tax relief grant. This was a good faith effort by the district to give back $398,000 to our taxpayers, but it also goes into the calculation for determining what the request would be with it. So I do want to mention that. Later on in today's presentation, later in the board meeting will be another abatement that we will be giving back to the taxpayers as a requirement for the property tax relief grant. It was 2 consecutive years. So I do want to bring that into this presentation and mention that to the board with it and to the community that we will be abating additional money back to it, even though we are requesting 7%. We will be continuing to levy heavy in our education fund. By levying in the education fund, that gives us the flexibility to move and transfer money internally to funds in case the fund balances get too low and we can't meet our operating expenses. It is the largest fund, but it also gives us the most flexibility to move money if necessary throughout the course of a school year. Levy amounts, like I said, are determined by our expenditures year after year. The amounts that are being requested, obviously heavy in the education fund, but as we go down to the different funds, basically what we are levying covers our costs annually. So what we're trying to do is always have half of the fund balance available. And as we get our taxes in, we now accumulate enough money to cover the second half of the year, still leaving fund balance of approximately half the year in each fund. We do have a surplus in our IMRF fund with it. We do have a large balance in that. That's why it's only levied for 50,000. And then also our Social Security fund has a big fund balance. That's why it's only 50,000. We're trying to spend that down and move the money into the ed fund, which is our largest fund with the most expenditures. As far as the requirements for the tax levy for 2022, all the necessary steps have been completed. With the anticipation of this being approved by the board tonight, it would be submitted to Cook County tomorrow. The main thing that we have to remember is the district must file by the last Tuesday of the month. So the goal is to have this approved tonight and then filed tomorrow with Cook County. So we meet the deadline with the request. The biggest issue is if you don't hit that request, no money. At this particular time, is there any questions for the board members?
There are none.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information. I need a recommendation for approval of the 2022 tax levy.
All right, Board Member Hannah, I make a motion that the board approve the 2022 tax levy.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Can we get a roll call?
Board President Griffin,
Yay.
Board Vice President Hannah,
Yeah.
Board Secretary Taylor,
Absent.
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Morris,
Yay.
Board Member Williams-Wilford. Yay.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have what is it? Spotlight on success.
Good evening, board members, community members, teachers, staff. So a spotlight on success. We are spotlighting our very own Lindop band. Our Lindop band was able to play at Proviso East High School as well with the Math and Science Academy. So it's a collaboration with our band director, music teacher, Miss Walker. So enjoy.
My name is Brooklyn. I've been playing the flute for 2 years, and the thing that I like about playing in high school is playing with other people.
I have been surprised of the playing percussion for 2 years, and what I like about the high school is that they're drum sets, because the drum set was real nice there. Yeah, I just really wanted to play it, so that's why I made around going to high school.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Gear. I've been playing the clarinet for 2 years, and the thing I like about playing with the high school band is that where I can see myself going to high school.
Hi, my name is Jose, and I've been playing flute for 2 years now. My favorite thing about playing with the high school band is getting to listen to other flute players.
My name is Aurora. I've been playing the clarinet for 2 years. One thing I love about the high going to Proviso East is the people.
With so congratulations to our Lindop band and Miss Walker. Thank you.
Great job. Okay, next, are there any public comments? Okay, next we would have upcoming events and correspondence. Is there any? Okay, there is none, and everyone is asked to read the information that is presented underneath that at their own leisure. Next up is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve Lindop payroll?
All right, Board Member Hannah, I make a motion that the board approve the Lindop District 92 payroll for November 16th, 2022 through December 20th, 2022 in the amount of $448,251.03. Activity account reconciliation for November 2022, Lindop District 92 accounts payable for November 15th, 2022 through December 20th, 2022 in the amount of $400,372.63. In the special open session meeting minutes for December 3rd, 2022.
Cheryl Griffin, I second. Does anyone have any comments? If not, can we get a roll call?
Board President Griffin,
Yay.
Board Vice President Hannah,
Yeah.
Board Secretary Taylor, absent. Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Yay.
Motion carries. Old business. Cheryl Griffin, I make a motion that the board approve the regular open session meeting minutes for November 15th, 2022. Can I get a second?
I second, Hannah.
Is there any discussion? Mrs. Taylor, Mrs. Williams-Wolford.
On the minutes, it stated that I was absent, but it did acknowledge when I came into the room. So can the absent be changed to present? Thank you.
Okay, we'll look at, yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
So if the minutes could be approved with that change, please.
Okay, with the changes that Mrs. Williams-Wolford has commented on, we will be making those changes, but can we get a vote on that? Roll call,
Board President Griffin,
yay.
Board Vice President Hannah,
Yeah.
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Williams Wilford. Yay. Board Secretary Taylor, absent.
Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the regular closed session meeting minutes?
All right, Hannah, I make a motion that the board approve the regular closed session meeting minutes for November 15th, 2022.
Cheryl Griffin, I second. Any discussion? If not, can we get a roll call?
Board President Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Vice President Hannah.
Yay.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Secretary Taylor, absent. Board Member Williams Wilford. Yay.
Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution for year 2022 property tax?
Board Member Dawson, I make a motion that the board approve the resolution fiscal year 2022 property tax relief grant as presented.
A second, Hannah.
Any discussion? If not, can we get a roll call?
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board President Griffin.
Yay.
Board Vice President Hannah.
Yay.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Williams Wilford.
Yeah.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Secretary Taylor, absent.
Motion carries. Next, we'll have a discussion on the III conference. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thanks. A presentation by the admin team. On the district, I'm sorry. Oh,
Good evening, Board of Education, community members, as well as staff. We are here today to give our part 2 of the deep data dive. We do know, and we've had some conversations at our meeting on December 3rd that we did not supply exactly what you needed. And so we've gone back to rework this, and we've also met with Mr. Cohn. And so I'm hoping that this is fine-tuned enough. And if not, we will make sure that we keep fine-tuning it until we get it exactly where you would like it. There's a lot of data here, and because of the state of emergency, everyone has had to be hands-on. And so even in district level, we are walking the hallways and helping if there are any discipline problems, making sure that we're calling as well. So I just want you to know that this is a concerted effort. And as we keep 70 in front of us, you all have an agenda with you. If you have any questions or if any comments at the end, please make sure you write those down. Thank you. And we will begin. And so this was a quote that was given during the board retreat, but we just changed it and tweaked it a little bit by Abraham Lincoln, but this is another version of it. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. If we are working against ourselves, we are brought to desolation. And every city of a house or house that is divided against itself shall not stand. And that is how we are working, making sure that we are not divided, but we are all supporting one another. Thank you.
Good evening again, board members, community members, teachers and staff. Thank you so much for having us. So in terms of board goals, student achievement and curriculum. So here you have the legend in terms of MAP and IAR projections. So level 5 deals with exceeding expectations, which is blue, all the way to red, which is does not meet or yet meet expectations. So this is the graph that was seen on the 3rd of December in terms of English language arts proficiency. So when we look at this, you notice that thank you, sorry. You notice that last year we had 32.6% of our students at level 1. This year we have 31.5. So that means we're spreading out our level 1 between levels 2 and 4. Same thing when you look at mathematics. Last year we had 36% of students were in level 1, and this year we have 31.2%. So then again, those students are being spread out from levels 2 through 4. Now, the question you might ask is, why are we leading with reading? Well, as you know, reading is fundamental. If you cannot read, you won't be able to exceed in any other interdisciplinary subject. So that's why we are starting with reading, to make sure that we are honing in on the variety of content areas for our students. So when we look at teachers in terms of the Danielson framework, we're looking at the 4th cluster, which is intellectual engagement. We need to make sure that the students are intellectually engaged in the classroom. What is the nature of what the students are doing? Why are they doing what they're doing? Because it has to be rigorous in order to increase the students' achievement. So do the teachers' explanations in their lesson design correlate to what's happening in the classroom? Are students asked to explain? Metacognition, think about their thinking in terms of why they're doing what they're doing, and or in an assessment, for instance, why did you get what you got incorrect? Thinking about your thinking to make sure you can decipher where it is you went wrong in terms of your line of thinking. Lastly, are instructional strategies suitable? Are they suitable for the content in which is being taught? So when we looked at that, we looked at, in terms of the 4th cluster, what could we hone in on in terms of the teachers with the Danielson framework? So these are the 5, not domains, components that we're looking at. So we're looking at the design of the instruction, the importance of the content. Why is it we're learning what we're learning? How is it going to help us in a career or if we're going to college? The students need to know why they're learning what they're learning. They're not just learning it for rote. Because when we were in school, a lot of things, they never told us why we're learning it. Now students are taught why you're learning what you're learning and how you're going to use it to better yourself. Whether you go to college or you go straight to vocational school and you do a career, you need to know why. We're also looking at the explanations in terms of making it rigorous so that students are investigating their thinking. We're looking at quality of questioning. So we're talking about depth of knowledge questions. So it goes from level 1 to level 4. So level 1 is yes or no questions. Like, did you wake up this morning? Yes or no? Level 4 question would be, why is water wet? That's a deep thinking question. And lastly, we're looking at the intellectual challenge. How are you challenging the students in your classroom? So what we did is the building partnered with the district in terms of making sure that cluster 4 is met. Dr. Betts is going to talk about how we're collaborating together in terms of the district building as well as the students in terms of reaching this achievement goal of intellectual engagement. Dr. Betts?
Thank you, Ms. O. Good evening, Board of Education, administration, and staff. We have been, as Dr. Jackson mentioned, all hands on deck as a district administration team and a building administration team this year. We are all supporting instruction, we are all supporting discipline, and we are all supporting each other. So we are working towards showing you how we plan to intensify and formalize this partnership between district and building. So district is going to be selecting a day and a hallway, a wing of our building to observe for those 5 components of intellectual engagement. And in order to do that, that means that Ms. Opari Saforo will need to continue to work on the lesson designs with teachers, which she has been doing since the beginning of the school year. In addition to that, Mr. Kenobi plays a role in this as well, because if classrooms are not managed and students are being referred for discipline issues, then that is also taking time away from opportunities for instructional engagement. Our students will rise to the occasion, because if we ask our students to model their thinking and work collaboratively, and engage in conversation and take a position and defend their arguments, they will rise to the occasion and they are fully capable of doing those things.
Thank you, Dr. Betts. So in terms of December 3rd, what we are giving you now is the prescription for each individual child. So in board books, you will find all of the students based on student 1, student 2, in terms of what I'm about to present to you. So this is the graph. This is the graph that you saw in the October board meeting, if my memory serves me right. So you can see here that so this is grade 8. We're looking at the grade 8 students. So previously we had 4 students reading at the first grade level. 2 have since transferred out. Previously, we had 5 students reading at the 8th grade level. 1 has transferred out. So in terms of these students, what we did is we developed a prescription for each individual child. So here's an example of a prescription. So this prescription is for students who are in grade 8, right now, this example, and they're reading at the grade 1 level. So they're reading at the grade 1 level. So this student has been at Lindop since grade 4. This student also has an individualized educational plan. This student's current RIT score in terms of math is 181. Dr. Betts, tell us, what is the RIT score?
Thank you, Ms. O, for asking that question. The RIT score is the number that allows us to access a student's instructional level and provide a prescription and a learning pathway for that child.
So based on that, what we did, or what the teachers did, is that they looked at each, what's going on? Oh, there it is. It popped up. Sorry. So they looked at each student. So what has been done since the beginning of the school year? So as you can see, scaffolding in 8th grade materials, one-on-one work with setting the baseline to identify the deficiencies, worked with special education teacher and students in terms of writing and focusing on building and structuring a 5-paragraph essay. What is being done right now? So right now we're honing in on comprehension. So right now this child is working on comprehension. The second trimester will be focusing on improving writing. This child is right now being introduced to grade 8 vocabulary. So what will be done? So we're going to continue to service the child in terms of the deficiencies. So we're working on comprehension. We're working on 8th grade vocabulary. And the goal for trimester 3 is to get this student exposed to grade 9 vocabulary. So a prescription, when you look at board docs for each individual child in grade 8, you will see for English language arts, you will see the prescription. We're not only stopping at grade 8. This is going to be done in grade 7, grade 6, and it's also going to be done for math as well. So you're going to see a prescription, because you remember on the 3rd, I talked about how Ms. Mills differentiates in her homework for each individual child. We want that differentiation for each of our students here at Lindop so that they're able to excel and exceed. Any questions regarding what I just presented? All right, so we're going to move over to Mr. Kenobi in terms of student behaviors that are barriers to academic success in terms of tardies and absences.
Good evening, Board of Education, teachers, staff, and guests. Happy holidays. So again, we're going to look at the correlation between what we're talking about in terms of the prescription and look for the barriers in terms of tardy, absences, infractions, and also talk about the evaluation for the teachers. So I want to pay close attention to the 8th grade level. Again, these are proficiency levels based on our current 8th graders in terms of ELA reading. And this chart shows the tardies based on the students at each proficiency level. Again, if you pay close attention to 7th and 8th grade, you can see that 6th and 7th grade proficiency and 8th grade, there are 4 students. Again, this is the map that is taken, the measurement of academic progress that is taken 3 times a year that measures projected proficiency for students. So second, third grade, fourth grade, our current eighth graders count for 49% of the tardies for those proficiency levels, which is substantial. But let's dive deeper. And again, tardies do matter as much as absences in terms of the data shows that 5 to 15 minutes for tardies for a day, if you're late 5 to 15 minutes, amounts to 11 to 25% of instruction lost. That's substantial. Here's a representation of that graph with spikes in those grade levels. But let's look into math. Again, let's look at the concerning numbers of our eighth graders that are below eighth grade level that are racking up tardies. And again, for math, this could be that they're arriving late to school and missing instruction in math, which they need, which is substantial. Again, you see the spikes in those grade levels that are below proficiency for eighth grade, which hinders students from moving forward levels, right? Also prohibits our eighth graders from exceeding on the IAR if they're missing minutes of instruction. So let's look at the absences. So again, we have our eighth graders, 4 students that amount to 21% of the absences. But again, the concerning part is our students that are at the third grade level, 9 students are missing 42%. And that amounts to that you can consider that there's excused absences, but there is for eighth grade, 26 unexcused absences for the year. 2 students amount to 35% of those unexcused absences. So we actually put plans in place, remediation plans with the parent to work on tardies and absences to school with those individuals. Again, here's a graphic of those spikes, especially at the lower grade levels, and the yellow line is the average of number of absences across grade level. So again, math, let's pay close attention to those absences below eighth grade proficiency level. 73% of our students that test at the 2nd to 5th grade level are missing 73% of school instructional minutes. Concerning. Again, you see that spike for those students. So what can be done? And this has already taken place. The fact is communication with parents about the importance of tardy versus absences. The emphasis on tardies has to be just important as absences because tardies add up to minutes. Minutes add up to minutes upon hours of instruction lost, especially in reading or math if they're missing that class. That's detrimental to those students, and re-emphasizing that to parents. Also committed alongside the superintendent, we've already begun starting to meet with parents again and reinforcing and providing remediation plans for students. An example is having the student sign in the front office when they get to school to make sure they're at school before the first class begins. Holding students and parents accountable and being very transparent, especially with our eighth graders, what this means for high school. The next steps, communication is key. Again, you send notices in the mail as documentation. On those notices, it provides the handbook guidelines. It provides the Illinois State Board of Education requirements for truancy so parents understand what that means and how detrimental that is for a child. And we must enforce the policy and what the Illinois State Board of Education enforces. And also involving our local programs like West 40, that when kids have excessive absences, having them help us reach out to families to emphasize that. And if need be, calling DCFS for educational neglect. Some of the benchmarks that we currently have in place, and again, this was a culmination of last summer with meeting with parents, but tardies is a group 3 out of 6. Kids do get consequence based on a progression of consequences. Parents do have phone calls. We do meet with parents. Kids do miss out on extracurricular activities that if we met with the parent and we told them that this trend is happening, then something has to be taken away. And then also with absences is making sure that parents are notified well in advance with the communication that the child is on a trend towards truancy, which nobody ever likes to hear. So again, let's look at the infractions now. Let's break it down. Tardies and absences, but let's see what's happening in this classroom. Again, we have students below grade level proficiency that are racking up infractions at a second or third grade level in reading, 65%. Let's look at the type of infractions. Group 1, classroom management. If the child is being disruptive and not engaged in the classroom, guess what? Those second and third grade projected proficiency 8th graders are not going to get caught up. You see a group 4 in there for a 8th grader who is at a second grade proficiency level in ELA. That could be that student received a disciplinary referral to the office and a substantial suspension was issued, which means they lost instructional time. And services, thank you for that. And again, I want to touch upon when kids are tardy or they're absent, they miss their services as their special education minutes, their social work minutes. They miss more than just the day of school. They miss all those resources that were put in place. Thank you. Again, here's a graph, again, at the lower levels of proficiency level racking up infractions. These are the kids that need to be in the classroom. For math, the same thing tells the story, second or third grade. If this is during a math class and the kids are not engaged, they're not going to get caught up. So actions. So expectations for 8th grade have to be more rigorous. The infractions and the consistency and how that looks for teachers and how we're going to roll that out for the future is already in place. And I'll explain further. Looking at the MTSS framework, the multi-tiered systems of support, tier 1 supports, right? Tier 2 supports what we have in place for these students. So that way they have time in class for instruction. I touched upon this at the December 3rd, but January, we're going to re-evolve the PBI system to 2 systems, K-4 and 5th through 8th. And one of the expectations for 5th through 8th grade is to have a proficiency standard expectations for teachers in the classroom as well as students. This is what I'm supposed to be at, and I'm expected to perform at this level, and that's going to be an expectation. Also retraining and refreshers for teachers that need more PD in implementing those things. And also, we have in place and developed professional development plans for those teachers that are struggling with classroom management and engaging students and giving them the tools that they need in terms of having those infractions go down in 8th grade and engaging students in the instruction. We're going to continue to monitor. We're going to continue to re-involve the PBIS system, and we're going to hold the 8th grade students accountable in their contracts that they sign, but also the teachers and staff providing those professional development plans and working with them to keep them engaged and manage their students. Here are some examples of the teachers in 8th grade and the contact numbers or the contact phone logs for those teachers for the years. And as you can see, some teachers are reaching out more than others. And that's unacceptable. Informal observations and then formal observations. Again, formal observations are contractual with our evaluation process, but informals, especially new staff and teachers, we have more informals than tenured staff. Again, here's a graph for the parent contacts, a graph for the informals. And then that's it for my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
What's an example of the informal contact, just so?
So the difference between informal and formal, informal is not scheduled. It's, I come to your classroom, sit down and observe what you're doing and take notes and actually evaluate based on my evaluation components and give you feedback and ratings based on that informal. It's not scheduled. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Betts for our next section for barriers of academic success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Over the last several years, probably about the last 4 years or a little bit more even, we have been talking about phasing out our use of automated learning path apps. So initially, we realized we had so many, we had to pare it down. So we worked with teachers, we worked through the teacher level technology committee in the building to figure out who could use what at what level so that we weren't doubling up. Eventually, a few months ago, going back like right before summer, we had to just kind of say we have to cut this off during instructional time. So we're phasing this out during valuable instructional time. So I wanted to show you why we're doing this. And even though we talked about phasing it out and we've been talking about it for years, it remained a very painful part of moving our teachers towards engaging our students and designing instruction that will engage our students. But if you look at this chart, you can see why we were in a position where we had to make this decision. So we adopted IXL. It's our most heavily used software program over the last several years. That was 2015, 2016. It was mainly used for math. If you look at the orange column on the left-hand side as you're looking at the screen, you see the grade level. You can see the total minutes spent in yellow. In green, the average minutes per student. And then in blue or teal, you see the math proficiency for the 2016, at the time it would have been PARC test. Now we call it IAR, but it's the same exact test. Now, if you look at the 2021-2022 school year in comparison and just travel across those rows. Again, in orange, you have the grade level, yellow, you have the total minutes, and you see the math proficiency. So if we pick at some of these, let's look at 7th grade. I know it's covered for you, but 7th grade in 2015, 2016 had 31,771 minutes of use. And the math proficiency at that time was 19% in spring of 2016. Last year, our 7th graders had 80,000 minutes. This is all during the instructional day. It averages out over a 6-hour instructional day. It's about 222 days of instruction, and that's across the entire class. Our proficiency level went up 1 point from 2016 to 2022 on the assessment in 7th grade. But you can see that that 1 point is not in proportion to the amount of minutes spent on the app.
I have something I'd like to add. So as a classroom teacher, I used IXL. We were not told when we were using IXL that IXL is something that we're supposed to use no more than 15 minutes per week. What IXL does is it would send us information saying, giving us certificates on, yay, your child spent this many minutes. So we thought it was a good thing. So we, the teachers, did not know that we were being detrimental to our students when we were using IXL. So I have to give that as a disclaimer. We did not know that we were hurting our children. Now we do, and that's why we phased it out where the students are still able to use it. So what they're doing now is we look at the student profile. So again, back to the prescriptions, we look at the student profile, we look at the student's deficiencies, we base the homework on what that particular child needs in terms of using IXL at home. But again, I have to say, we didn't know in the beginning that we were being detrimental. We just wanted to compete and get those certificates. That's what they were sending us. So IXL did false advertising because we were getting them in our emails like, yeah, you use this many minutes, not knowing that best practice for IXL, it states that it's only supposed to be 15 minutes for the whole week. So we've opened our eyes as a school, and we now realize what we were doing. And that's why we have phased out this program being done in the school building. Back to you.
Thank you. You'll notice that the only grade level where minutes went down in usage from 2015-16 to 2021-2022 was 5th grade, and their scores went up. Again, we want them to go up higher. That's not, we're not turning cartwheels over that low of an increase, but it's an increase that matters. It's an increase that was garnered by teachers engaging students in the classroom. So you can see the data. I don't know if you have any questions about this, but this is why we had to phase out the apps.
Good evening, board, admin, community, staff. Okay, so everything that everyone's presented before me, it all incorporated our special education population. Here, for me, I'm here to put a little bit more emphasis on our 8th grade students that have IEPs, their proficiency levels in particular. So the next few slides will show charts of our current 8th graders that have IEPs and their proficiency levels in reading and math over the past few years. I was able to go only back to 4th grade. So I called Dr. Betts. I said, Dr. Betts, let me see the data. I was hoping to find something in which I'll get a little bit more into. So I wanted to know how these students were performing in prior grades. So this represents our current 8th graders as 4th graders. So in 2019, this is their proficiency levels as 4th graders in ELA. So as you see here, we have one student that met proficiency out of our current 8th graders. When they were 6th graders, we had no students that had met proficiency. We had to skip 5th grade due to the pandemic. They didn't test that year. This is ELA when they were 7th graders, we had another student that met proficiency. The next few charts is the same thing, but for math. So while they were in 4th graders, as you see, it's little to no students that had met proficiency. So my reasoning for pulling this data is because I was almost willing to bet that prior to the pandemic, scores were higher. Prior to us having a continuum of services, scores were better. So Lindop had a continuum of services pre-pandemic where they were able to get pulled out for reading and math. During the pandemic, we went back inclusion. Last school year was full inclusion. This school year, now we once again have a continuum of services. Well, my bet was wrong. Like that did not prove, pre-pandemic did not prove proficiency. Having a continuum of services didn't. But what the conclusion I was able to draw is that there was a fault in our tier 1 instruction, meaning the universal design. How are you differentiating instruction for all students in the core classroom? And so with that information, I've developed an action plan, which was already in place, but now that I'm seeing it from this perspective, it's intensifying. So it's starting with these 3 things. One, overhauling what the special education classes look like. So how Ms. O talked about cluster 4. Our SPED teachers aren't exempt for that. We don't want to put limits on what our special education population can do, our students can do. They are held to the same standard and expectations as the general education population. So I like to see our special education classrooms mimicking exactly what's in the general education classrooms. Overhauling the IEP writing. So knowing how to write IEPs and writing appropriate IEPs. Based on, based on their present levels. So we know that the IEPs it's supposed to support, it talks about where they are and where they need to be. So knowing how to write IEP goals, SMART goals. So part of the SMART goals is having achievable goals, not making them easy. Easy is achievable, but we also need to challenge our students, our special education population. Prior to me being an administrator, I was an 8th grade special education teacher in a couple of our neighboring districts. My scores was equivalent to their non-disabled peers across schools, not just in the school, but across other schools at their age. So I know what it can look like. So part of my plan is a lot of handholding with our teachers and showing them what instruction should look like, what IEP should look like, and knowing how to progress monitor, analyzing progress monitoring, knowing when it's time to say, hey, this student isn't making it. What do we need to do? Can we amend? Or the student is achieving and we need to challenge them even more. So that's part of my action plan just for our special education program. Any questions?
See, there are none. Go ahead.
Good evening, Board of Education, community and staff. Want to update you on the building, the grounds. This also kind of ties into the 70, because I mean, if you have something that's malfunction or damaged in the classroom, that also can affect instructional time. This is the work tickets that has been completed from November till today. As you can see, we had a lot of HVAC tickets that were submitted and completed. Again, this can affect educational minutes, so we take those with high priority. So all those have been completed. We have one pending right now. Also, just to refresh what we're going to be doing over the winter break, we're going to be doing a deep cleaning of the whole facility. Also doing some floor care. We're going to do preventive maintenance on all the HVAC units, changing the filters, oiling the motors and bearings. We're also going to be testing the batteries on all our plumbing fixtures and dispensers throughout the facility and changing filters on our ice maker. We also prepare to be doing snow removal over the break. We have all our equipment tuned up and ready to go, and ice melt is in stock, so we should be able to handle the snow over the break. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Valentine. I don't really have necessary question pertaining to you. I didn't get my hand raised fast enough with the last group. I do apologize. So not for you. You guys don't have to stand up. So sorry, Board Member Tanya Taylor. Question. I'm sorry I was late. I had a work emergency. I was here in the building, I promise you. I missed the presentation on the 70. However, I'm in board books. I don't see anything in here as far as a conclusion or a summary as far as our start date and our deadline, where we're going with this. So if you could catch me up, Dr. Jackson, that would be wonderful.
And so it's already begun. And so we talked about the different strategies that's happening, and specifically in the classrooms, beginning to incorporate the intellectual engagement, making sure that the teachers are teaching appropriately, but also that they're challenging the students. That's happening right now with the 70%. We're specifically keying in on 8th grade, but it's filtering down unto the other class levels. Another thing that they're doing right now is making sure that they are contacting parents so that parents do not find out at the last minute. And also making them partners with us to know that, you know, the child has no wiggle room because either we are one end or the parent is on the other end. I think one thing that has been most significant about what has been happening is really looking at how the absences and the tardies also impact that. What we've done is looked at some different policies from some different districts and seeing what they are doing. I know the building admin is also in the process of making additional phone calls to see how they're implementing it. We just had a meeting yesterday with a parent of a student that had 39 tardies. talking to that parent, talking to the student. They did sign a contract and coming, because the first thing on the student's mind was, am I going to be able to play basketball? And so that's off of the table until you take care of this business first. So we've been very adamant about it and intentional with it. Every parent is not happy, but what they are happy about is that now they have a direct line of communication and the teachers are being more responsive. Now, this has not been like all just glittery conversations, because we also have some teachers that are currently on remediation plans, professional development plans. These have not been easy conversations to be held, but it is something that we are diligently working on, because we know that until we reach the teachers, that we cannot reach the students. And I'm not sure if that's all of it, but that is how what we are doing in real time for that 70%,
Okay,
focusing on the 8th grade.
okay, thank you. So that's the end piece I needed to hear. So we are at the 8th grade. We at the 8th grade level. We're focusing on on coming to school. We exited some apps, which you presented with iExcel, but I'm sure there's other apps and other things that we're doing. I might have missed that part, but I'm still, and maybe it's just me, I'm only 1 out of 7, but I'm still not understanding. We have a lot of moving parts, but I guess I need to know we have a goal and we have a deadline. And I'm not understanding that. So what you're telling me is that we're working with our 8th grade parents and students
And teachers.
and it's a cycle.
Yes.
And we're working with a sense of urgency with that group first.
Absolutely.
Got you. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Wolford?
Dr. Jackson, is there any way possible, because as Ms. Taylor said, what's available to us in board books, that's what I thought was going to be presented tonight. I didn't know it was going to be a totally different presentation. So therefore, I wasn't able to, like wrap my brain around it and ask questions and stuff and be prepared for tonight, because it's something totally different in there.
So everything that we have is on the presentation and board book. So this right here is on the presentation and board book. So there's some
I didn't
additional
see that.
information, because it would have been probably a little over almost 2 hours presenting. And so some of the questions that you may have had specifically that require some additional conversation, we have that there. And if you have some additional questions after looking at that, we can. But if the board's pleasure is to have all of that information right in here, we did. We were being conscientious of time and making sure that we hit the points where we were, what we're doing now, and the outcomes of that.
The presentation that was presented to us tonight, can we have that?
It's on, yes, and it's on the
I-
presentation, but I'll do a hard copy.
Okay, I guess I don't know where to click on in board books to find it, because I only see it, the by student one. Am I the only one?
No, it's on the presentation. Mr.
Oh, okay.
Ellisque, if you could
Okay.
just give some directions, and so everyone will have that, please.
Okay, the other question I
Mr.
have,
Ellisque, did you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
the other question is, what I'm wondering about is, you spoke about, teachers are expected to do, more intellectual, something,
Engagement,
you
yes.
said, yes. So I'm just wondering if they had that skill set prior to now, they weren't using it. So was there professional development provided to teach that skill to teachers so that they're fully aware how to engage students in that manner? Because I imagine I don't know, I just guess if they knew how to do it, they would have done it prior to now. That's what I'm thinking.
Mrs. O and Dr. Betts, can you all come up and talk about that? I know we worked very hard on having individualized professional development plans for each of the teachers, but they've taken that a step farther, because as we're going through the continuous improvement process, we had to shift directions.
So what we've done is we've changed our committees. So what's happening is, in terms of our committees that we're working on student engagement. So cluster 4 is cluster 4, cluster 2, and cluster 6. My memory serves me right, is what we're working on our committee. So we're giving professional development to all the staff, whether you need some as a refresher, some it's new, because not everything is taught in school in terms of Danielson. So we revamped our committees.
Good evening again. I would just add that we have been working with teachers to create individualized professional development plans aligned to the Danielson framework. So in addition to shifting the committees and in addition to having PLCs this year that are more consistent, in addition to assisting teachers in how to use their planning time, we have also begun the process of implementing personalized professional development plans so that teachers know these are the 3 things that I need to work on, and this is how it's going to be measured. And thus far, my understanding is that the meetings that Ms. O has held with those teachers to present those plans, it's been very well received.
Ms. Williams-Wolford, does that answer all of your questions? Okay. Are there any further questions?
I have one, board member Brian Dawson. Would there be an opportunity for us to hear from a teacher or a, at some point, just, we definitely hear the presentation from the district, and I definitely want to make sure that their voices are heard too. And I know that, we're hearing their reactions to it, and I just want to make sure that, they understand the gravitas of what you're giving them. And so I don't think that we've had I'm sorry, there might be a teacher here. My fault if I don't see him, but they haven't shown, and I understand it's a long day for them, or they're the head of the union or anything, just to hear kind of what the teachers have to say too, because we are asking a lot of them now, and just to make sure that they have that buy-in and that they're on the same page, but they've never come and said anything. So I just want to make sure.
So they are invited. We do have Dr. K here tonight, and she may be able to talk because she is on the exec committee for the Teachers Association. And so she may be able to give a little insight of that. But what I will tell you, just taking away the apps did a upheaval with the entire building. I mean, there were tears and there were, it was a lot going on. So it really is not a happy place, but we know that we're all moving towards excellence and decreasing that 70%. Dr. K, would you just like to add what you have seen about some of the things that are going on and how we keep moving?
Hi, didn't know I would be speaking. Hi. I'm aware of some of this. Some of this is things that we've been working on with our consultant, Ann Cummins-Bogan, like the cluster piece. The committees, we've been meeting for the last 2 ones, and I think the one in January. We've been going over these in small groups and kind of what can you do right now to address these things. What else can I say? Sorry, I didn't know I would be speaking. The PLCs now we have a data team that plans for them, and then we facilitate. So I've been helping facilitate middle school. So we've been doing that and focusing on different instructional strategies and using the tools that we have so that teachers know what they're supposed to be focusing on and how to find that for each student. And we have like sort of, they talk about commitments that they do, and then we follow up with them. Those of us, the instructional coaches and myself, those of us that help facilitate those to make sure they're doing that. We've been revamping our MTSS and trying to make sure that students have interventions in place and that teachers are progress monitoring. I know I've been working with Ms. Kiefer a lot on helping the special ed team have what they need and work on specific goals for those students. Did I get everything? Oh, how do I feel about it? I feel very committed. I know we've had a couple of meetings during our institute days and SIP days to really help keep, because there's, a select few of us that are with admin working on some of this. So then getting that out to the teachers. I think we've done that very successfully in the committee meetings that we've had, and making sure everyone's on the same page.
Mr. Dawson, does that answer your questions?
Unfortunately, no. And the reason why I completely understand what you said, let me say that. It's just that in the last few meetings, we've had conversations extensively about the teachers. And I want to make sure that, you know, their voice is heard by the board and that the board knows how they feel, because I wouldn't want a situation where we get blindsided by them saying that they have this concern or that concern, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of how they felt. But if I do 100% understand what Dr. K is saying.
So maybe we can talk about it because it's not a board function with that part. And when you get into that, you get into personnel. And so we try to keep that apart, but maybe we can talk to Mr. Cohn and see how we can get you exactly what you need.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, moving right along, discussion on the III conference. If each of us can give our input on what we got out of it. Mr. Dawson, would you like to begin, or you didn't attend? Go ahead.
Board Member Alexander, just really briefly, I thought, as one of my first opportunities to participate, I thought the III conference was really informative. I definitely want to make my commendations to, I know Mr. Baranik, you know, great job. And I thought it was very informative to see a lot of the components that go into the things as it relates to just the financial aspects and things of that nature. So as it being my first conference, I thought it was very informative for me. Thank you.
All right, board member Hannah, I definitely ditto to what my board member Alexander said. III is definitely one of those conferences where you get to meet with other boards of education and network to see what's going on in their districts, and districts that differ from ours. And it was good to meet different people, people from all walks of life. Every district you could think of, big districts to small districts, districts like ours and districts way bigger than ours. It was great. This is, I think, my third one, and I look forward to next year's as well.
Thank you. Cheryl Griffin, for myself, being newer in the position of president, I took several courses on leaders. And to me, it was great to hear the challenges of other board presidents and even their interaction with administration. So that was a good experience for me, and also continuing to network afterwards.
Good evening, Board Member Tanya Taylor. So I do see some visitors in the room, some parents, old student alumni here tonight. So they probably look confused, like, what are you guys talking about? The board went to a conference. The conference was last week in Miami, Florida. Oh, which one y'all talking about? Oh, III. Okay, I'm sorry. The board went to a conference about a month ago, III. That conference was located downtown Chicago this year. And it gives the board opportunity for learning objectives. We learn about how to be a board member, the things it takes to be a board member. Then we also learn on a local level what goes on in the state of Illinois. We learn about governments, and it's different things, and it gives the board an opportunity of learning. The conference is normally a 3-day conference, sometimes 4. It all depends on what sessions or classes you decide to take. So just as a board member, I can say that the board is grateful that the community always supports things that we are engaged or involved in. And the board also, I'm only one of 7, but I'm sure the sentiments are the same, that we do appreciate our administrative team and our staff for allowing us to go and learn, because everything we learn, we bring back to make Lindop community better. So we just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Williams-Wolford.
Thank you for the opportunity to go once again to the III conference. This year, as one of my other board members said, colleagues said, we went to support Mr. Baranik. He did an awesome job presenting on fiscal management in different ways to look at finance as it relates to the school, as well as Dr. Jackson had had a presentation, and that was really great, showing STEM and the great work that we're doing. And that was really great information. My focus this year was more so on the fiscal management piece of it, because that's the area that I need to fine tune in terms of better understanding it, how to look at the different sheets and documentations as it relates to that. And so that was good information to fine tune my knowledge on. And it's still something that I'll continue to have to further develop in that area. But those workshops were very beneficial, as well as opportunity to collaborate and network with other Board of Educations throughout the state of Illinois.
Dr. Jackson.
Yes, thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to attend. And I know the admin will also chime in on the sessions that they went to. But one specific conference session was Making Meetings Matter. And as we talked about that with other people throughout the state, we talked about what is the difference between what needs to go to policy, what is a board action or a board job, or what is the staff's job, and how to really just sort of streamline that so that the lines are not blurred. And it was amazing at how many people, they gave some examples of some different meetings that were happening across the state, but Lindop's board meetings are very well run, and compared to some of the other ones, you're just a little bit chaotic, but everyone was forthcoming and we were coming to meet. But the most important thing out of that, what needs to be through policy, and then what needs to be handled by board or staff, so it does not take up the meeting in general, and as far as when the community is here.
Okay. Thank you. With the interest of time, if anyone would like to have any discussion on the CUBE conference, seeing as how we do have people in the audience, or would you like to proceed to the next item?
Can we do that next month? Is that possible? So we can give
Sure.
you all opportunity to, fully express what you learned.
Board Member Tanya Taylor, personally, I don't think it needs to go on the agenda for next month. It's fresh in our minds. If the board members would like to speak again, I'm only one of 7. I think we should do it at this time. I know it's 6:43 p.m. and we are ready to go, but it shouldn't take that long. Again, my sentiments on CUBE. Same opportunity as III. We went, we learned. This one was in Miami, Florida last weekend, and it gives the board an opportunity to be engaged with other school boards. There was a lot of presentations that went, most board members, we paired up in 2s just to make sure that we didn't miss a beat as far as hearing what was going on in the classes itself. So there, again, there's a lot to learn. We dissect the information over the weekend while we was there after the conference itself. We did bring some things back to Dr. Jackson that we want to implement. Those things I probably will be on the agenda for next month. But again, I'm only one of 7, but I think the sentiments may be mutual.
Cheryl Griffin, I think for the audience, the major difference in CUBE is that CUBE is for urban boards. And myself personally, I prefer CUBE because then you're meeting with other urban boards that are facing the same challenges that we are. And to actually be in that setting, you get a chance to brainstorm with other people to find out what's working for them if they're having the same issues. So myself, I did meet contacts that I'm still keeping in contact with. Did anyone else have anything?
And board member Hannah, I'll just follow right along with my other 2 counterparts have already said. CUBE is definitely a different conference. This is my first one going to CUBE, and it's something that I hope that I know that due to some things that we have backed out of CUBE, but if we can continue that, that's definitely something that's awesome. Like Cheryl just, our board president just said that it's urban boards of education. So you got to meet very, very powerful people that's not only dealing with school business, but our elected officials and big people in their cities and their states that are driving the right for their education plans for their students. And it was awesome.
Thank you. There is nothing further being said, so let's move on to the next item. New business. Mr. Baranik.
No, this is going to be Mr. Ellisview, and it is discussion on E-rate.
Oh. This one.
Good evening, community members, board members, staff, faculty. So a little about E-rate. E-rate is a bill that is free money that we get from the government. Everybody who has a telephone bill or cell phone bill, you pay a small little fee that goes to schools like us that request the money. And so next year, our internet contract is up, so we'll be requesting more money to go for E-rate to have a new contract because our internet contract is up next school year. So every 5 years, we can request E-rate money to upgrade our network infrastructure. Keep in mind, our network infrastructure runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It runs our phones, our servers, so it needs to stay on. We can never shut it down. And the cost is $174,000 to upgrade our internet, our network infrastructure. E-rate's going to pay $59,000 of that. And the state of Illinois is also going to give us $22,000, giving us a remainder of $80,000 that we'd have to pay out of the education fund. And here's a breakdown of everything we'd be buying with the network infrastructure. So we would be buying switches, which would be covered under E-rate, and then PoE switches. And that's $58,909. And then the state of Illinois is also going to help pay for the power of Ethernet switches and the connectors, which connect the switches together. And the district would be responsible for the connectors, the access points. Those are the things in the building that allow us to connect to the internet and installation of that as well. Are there any questions about this? Thank you.
Thank you. Now I guess it's Mr. Baranik.
Good evening, Board of Education, administrators, staff, and community members. Just to give the board a heads up, we will have our district auditor at our January meeting. Remember, our auditor is an independent third party that audits our financials. They check internal controls, check our policies, our procedures, and then ultimately produce our final audit, our federal programs, federal audit, our AFR, and then also the township treasurer. They're also the auditor for the township treasurer. One thing that's important about that township treasurer, remember that our money does flow through the township treasurer. So we need to make sure that they're doing their internal controls. And then, like you said, my recommendation to the board, all these documents are in board book. They are pretty substantial as far as pages with it. With our with our final audit, if you go through the first 13 pages, it gives an independent audit review from the auditor in a narrative. And then it goes into the actual figures in each individual fund. If you read the narrative, though, it kind of explains the barriers that we have, some of the hard falls that we have, and their opinion with it. Then with our federal programs audit, any district that receives $750,000 or more of federal funds must have a federal single audit. In there is also the audit. We were over the $750,000 threshold because of our ESSER money. That is our COVID money that we have round 1, round 2, and round 3. We're roughly 1.1 million with those, so we have to have a federal audit. If you look at the AFR, it is an Excel version. One of the things that I will say is look at our financial profile page that gives us a score. We did receive 4.0, the highest rating on it. And it also has on there a new figure for cash on hand days of operating with it in our operating funds. Our auditor will go over all this at the January meeting. My recommendation is review all this. If you have questions, formulate any questions that you have, please work it through Dr. Jackson. And then we can get it to the district auditor so that we can tailor the presentation to answer your questions, to go along with their presentation at the January meeting. Just wanted to give the board the heads up that the audit is complete. It's in board book. Please take some time to review it. If you have those questions, work it through Dr. Jackson and we'll get it to the auditor and we'll get all your questions answered at the January meeting.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Baranik. If I can get a motion for the board to approve the property tax relief grant.
I recommend approval to submit the application for the property tax relief grant in a total amount of $510,658 for fiscal year 2023.
Cheryl Griffin, I second. Can I get a roll call?
Board President Griffin,
Yay.
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Vice President Hannah.
Absent.
Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Williams Wolford. Yeah. Board Secretary Taylor.
Yeah.
Motion passes. Cheryl Griffin, I make a motion that the board approve to partner with Black Men United commencing on January 2023 through June 2023 school year at a cost no greater than the total amount of $5,000 to be reevaluated June 30th, 2023 for the 2023 through 2024 school year. Can I get a second?
Second, Brian Dawson.
Any discussions on this?
Yes, and so, as you know, Black Men United have been showing up for us for quite a while, even without us asking. They've just been volunteering up and helping us as they do other communities throughout the Chicagoland area. This time, we're asking them to be a little more intentional with us, and we're asking them to come in, and this particular service agreement is on board book, and it is outlined there, but mentoring for exposure, life skills, they're going to be with a specific group of children for bullying, community engagement. Something else that I know we're coming up as we begin to start talking about our strategic planning. That's going to be back on the docket so we can finish that. And what is good about this is that Mr. Cohn is already helping us with the initial steps for the strategic planning. So we don't have that far to go. Also, Mr. Kenobi has been working with the community and trying to get the Real Men Read, but we're also going to have them, they will come in numbers and be present really for children walking back and forth to school. They'll be assisting us with having discussions with the males and how important it is for them to really take that forefront and that lead with the children. We're also looking at having the men escort all of their children to school and just walking up. I know we tried to do this before, but it has not been at the magnitude of where we wanted it to be. But there are powers and numbers, and as I stated earlier, as men as leaders in the village. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Board Member Tanya Taylor. So I see the information in board books, however, I haven't had an opportunity to dissect it. But my first question to you is, would these gentlemen have background checks on file with us
Absolutely.
and everything has been ran past legal?
Absolutely, because there'll be different ones coming through. Everything has gone through legal. In fact, the agreement, once we told them what we wanted to do, they came up with one for us. And so this was hands off. All we had to do was just make sure that we added in the names of the people who would be responsible for it. Everyone who comes on to the school, as far as doing work in there, has to be background checked.
Okay.
So that is no exception.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Ms.
Board Member
Alexander.
Alexander, just really quickly, is the 5,000 just their fee, or will it go to certain items or things like that?
A little bit of everything that you said. It will be a comprehensive of items. It will be a comprehensive of field trips that they may take. things that they may bring in for the students. And any other time that they are taking to help us with the planning to get it to the magnitude that we would like it to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any further questions? Ms. Kennedy, Ms. Williams-Wolford?
Will they be left alone with children without staff?
No,
Thank you.
or parents.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Board Secretary Taylor.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Board President Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
I abstain.
Board Member Williams Wolford.
Yeah.
Board Vice President Hannah, absent.
Absent. Motion passes. Now we're gonna have a discussion on the change of the Board of Education closed session meeting. Ms. Williams-Wolford, you requested this item?
I requested that this be placed on the agenda. Due to COVID, we started meeting in here because of what the mandates and the health mandates with us staying 6 feet apart and all of that. And as I reflect more on recent events with us being in here, this is a very open space. Closed session is confidential. And it just, when I think about this space, it's just so open, you know, information that we're discussing, which is confidential in nature, could be very concerning when you're discussing it in an open gym like this. And was just wondering if the board will reconsider us holding closed session back in the conference room like we used to, because it, you know, gives us an opportunity to ensure the integrity of the conversation is within the walls where we're discussing. So it's up for board discussion. Thank you for considering this request.
Myself, I would like to poll the boards to see if starting tonight, we can move into the conference room for closed session. Would you do a roll call on that?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Board President Griffin.
Yay.
Board Secretary Taylor.
Yeah.
Board Member Alexander.
Oh, go right ahead.
I just had a question, just would it require anything with us just going with the inconvenience to staff, or would it just be us taking our things?
Just us taking our things.
Okay, yay.
Continues.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yeah.
Board Member Williams Wolford.
Absolutely.
Board Vice President Hannah, absent.
Okay, we will be convening tonight to the conference room. Oh, go right ahead.
And that will be going forward?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, next, the president report, for which I covered what I would be talking about, which was the two conferences during the other session, during one of the other items. So I have nothing further. Superintendent report?
Yes, superintendent report. We have a lot of things that we've been doing. And the first thing that we did with our programs and services is that we did have a lockdown drill. For staff, we partnered with the Broadview Police Department. The Safety Committee had spoken about this. Mr. Kenobi is the chair over that Safety Committee on our team. And then we also have Mr. Morris as well as Mr. Hannah, who are the board co-chairs. But we needed to have a lockdown drill as we began to hear about the shootings that are happening across the country. We did not want to get comfortable and think that it could never happen with us and in this school. And so the police department did come to Lindop, and it was probably, we had a debriefing session in case any of the staff members had any questions about what was about to occur. And then we had a debrief afterwards. They did have blank rounds to come in, and even though we were all in this area in the beginning to sort of talk about what we were heading into or what would happen and how this would go, even when they did the blank round in here, it was startling. And so following Illinois code, you have to let the staff know when you're going to have the drill and the day that it will occur on. We also have a few of our staff members that are expecting, and so we wanted to make sure that they were well aware of that. Staff had a lot of different comments about it, but the most one that stood out to me, and I'm not sure if the admin wants to add anything, but what stood out to me specifically was just the jarring of hearing that, and even with blank rounds, and even just sort of all jumping, even though they said, this is how it's gonna sound, you're ready, but everyone jumped when they heard it. Does staff have anything else? Mr. Kenobi, I know you work with them a lot. Did you have anything that you wanted to add about that, or any comments that you may have received?
Staff member, if you see it right in the building, you walk in coffee and fall a walk down. Because everybody's accustomed to hearing my voice or administrative over the walkie-talkie, so that came up in conversation with the staff. You can call lock down, you can see a threat, call it, and you lock down.
Thank you so much for that. Next up, I'm sorry, questions? Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
This is also a learning. It's that you have, exposure to school, look at different ways of attention, but also you have to stop that, you come in and break everything. But this is a great way to get them to really see Lindop up close and personal, and then also give us feedback. Little as good as controlling it here, but then we also need to help from the outside community. Their biggest thing is the response. And they really facility how long. So I want to do police, their, thoughts on it too. Also a really good, for them, and we're a partnership together. And ultimately, like I said, school safety, we want to keep building on it. So we want to say, there's some change in their heart.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next on our list, oh, sorry, yep, I'm sorry, yep.
Just a quick comment. I like this. It's real time, even with that broom in that hallway. I love that.
Okay, next we have a program and service, and I was speaking with a board member just a couple days ago, and we were talking about educating not just students, but also staff with finances and investing. And I have been trying to get in contact with Aerial Investments. I saw on WTTW where they had something, and the children were talking about stocks and how they were trading them, and how it didn't matter if you had a lot of money or a little, it's the one that was going to stand the test of times. So never got in contact with Aerial Investments, several calls. We also have an elective financial literacy that our 8th grade math teacher is having, but I did run across an email with Kid Millionaire. I just randomly typed a note saying, will you please give me some more information? She called me immediately. She talked about generational wealth. She talked about how this program could not be done without including the families. She's talking about also the language that we're using as it relates to money and our feelings with it. All of that comes from how we were brought up, right? We are sum total of our experiences, and some of us have had very good experiences with money and some have not had those experiences, but trying to teach them how to move to the next phase. This was another time Mrs. Stewart is sitting there as well, but she was actually excited and wanted to make sure that we were able to really push this out to the staff. and especially as several people are coming up for retirement. So something that's very, very interesting, and it'll be on the next board agenda for approval. But super excited, and I will tell you that every eighth grader who sat in there was engaged from the beginning to the end. We sometimes wonder about people coming from the outside and how the classroom management will be. Not a sound, a lot of questions being asked, and so we know that we're moving in the right direction for this. Also, parents are asking about this as well. Okay, next we have our in-service here, and so we had Bridges training, and I think that is something with the special ed department that happened. We had the curriculum for My Perspectives with middle school ELA, Z-Space training. As you know, we were the leader with Z-Space when it came out, probably like in 2014-15. We had that immediately, and just training our new teachers who are in science to be able to present that to our children to give them more exposure. It specifically has the 3D. It has the 3D. Everyone has their goggles, which are a lot different than before. And I like to just publicly thank Mr. Elliskew for looking into that, because as once I got the call, I had just come from a new district, and he was ready to jump on it right away. And also artificial intelligence. So we can go to the next one. All right, winter concert, first one in person since 2019. It was amazing. We also had a little bit of church at the end of the program. The children were excited. This is probably one of the best put together performances that we've had in a very, very long time. And this was also streamed for those who were unable to attend in person. All right, our community parade. We participated, Mr. Kenobi, myself, and Mr. Ballantyne did participate in the parade on Saturday. And I guess this is the third year that has been happening, but we had not participated, and I will never miss another parade because to see the families and the children out in the cold, just excited to see the sleigh go by, excited to see us blowing, they're waving, and it was even more exciting than that back to school parade when the people were out, because the children were out there. It didn't matter how cold it was. And so where I thought I was tired at the end of the day from being here all day that Saturday, it lifted everything. So I'm thankful for being able to participate in that. Next, we have our board photo retakes, Tuesday, January 17th. Everyone should have received their photos, but if you would like to do a retake, that is the date, January 17th, and it will be at 9 a.m. here at Lindop. Okay, do we have another one? Okay, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have committee reports, for which, starting with the Personnel Committee meeting, the next meeting is to be determined. Finance Committee meeting, next meeting is to be determined. PACE Governing Board meeting, Mr. Dawson and Mr. Morris.
The next meeting will be tomorrow night. Now I have water report at the next board meeting.
Thank you. Safety SEL meeting to be determined. Policy meeting, January 11th. 2023. Okay. Para CIA committee meeting to be determined. Technology committee meeting. December 15th at 4 p.m.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor.
Board Member Tanya Taylor. So we had a technology meeting at 4 o'clock on December the 15th. The meeting was basically surround E-rate with Mr. Elliskew gave us a presentation as to the district monies that we received from the government for E-rate and how we were going to utilize that with just updating. Mostly, if you want to chime in, Mr. Elliskew, mostly just talking about our internet services and our providers and how we're going to move forward with the free money. Is that okay?
Can Good evening again. It's mostly everything I covered earlier today, basically, just our internet contract is up. And so we need to renew a 3-year internet contract for the next board meeting, and then the network upgrade infrastructure that I spoke about earlier to this evening. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does that end here? Yeah. Okay, then we have strategic planning committee meeting. That is to be determined. Community engagement committee meeting. That is also to be determined. Are there any public comments? No? Okay, now I need a motion to go into executive session.
Board Member Tanya Taylor, I make a motion to go into a closed section under, did I give a time? I'm sorry. The time is 7:10 p.m.
Public comment.
For public, there was no public comment.
Oh, there was. Okay, I didn't hear it say. I'm sorry.
Continue.
I move that the board go into closed session under 5 Illinois School Code 120/2 C1 4, 8, 9, and 10 to discuss the appointment, employment compensation, discipline, and or performance of a specific employee of the public body. Evidence or testimony presented in open hearing or in a closed hearing where specifically authorized by law, security procedures, school building safety and security, student disciplinary cases, and the placement of individual students in special education programs and other matters relating to the individual students at 7:11 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Cheryl Griffin, I second. Can we get a roll call?
Board President Griffin,
Yay.
Board Member Alexander. Yay. Board Vice President Hannah, absent. Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Morris,
Yay.
Board Secretary Taylor,
Yay.
Board Member Williams Wolford.
Yay.
Motion carries. We're now. Open session is now ended. Thank you all for coming.